Welcome to Deep River Farm, folks. I told you this morning I was going to get some information out concerning the Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha and what they're doing with property up in the mountains. But first, I want to remind you that we're going to have a concert in the park November the 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. We're going to have an information tent set up by the Global Methodist Church there in Asheboro, Central Global Methodist, and they'll be able to answer any questions you might have. Talk to anybody that wants to about what we've seen in the mountains, our relief efforts that's been going on, and what our next phase is how we're going to help these families in the mountains. You'll be able to give a donation, cash, check, online, or gift cards to Walmart, Home Depot, or Lowe's Home Improvements. Please, no food or winter clothing. They are completely, fully stocked with those items presently, and have no more room for them up on the west side of the mountains in any distribution area from Canton all the way down to Forest City. So please, no food or winter clothing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I'm going to be talking in some code, and the code is going to be the phonetic alphabet. That's what I'm going to be using. So when you hear me say some strange words, take the first letter out of that word. You may want to get you a piece of paper and a pen and stop this video right here. So when it starts, you'll be able to write down the word that I'm saying in the phonetic alphabet. The reason I'm doing this is so that the video does not get taken down or shadow banned or anything like that. We need this information out there because people need to know what's going on. Well, today is day 47, I believe. We got rain in the mountains. It's cold, cold rain. And looks like this is going to help the dust situation. It's been a major problem up there. There's a lot of people with upper respiratory problems. There's a lot of skin rashes from the dirty, contaminated water. There's chemicals in the water, fuel, kerosene, fertilizer, raw sewage, industrial waste. All this is found in the water, along with siding, asbestos, shingles, all that kind of stuff that been crumbled up, composites, just you name it, it's in the water and in the soil up there and in the dust. So everybody's wanting to find out, what have we found out about Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha? What have we found out? Well, there's a new plan coming out by Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha. And they're going to be doing, from what I understand, a new flood zone baseline. And it's designed to accommodate what they're calling a new 100-year floodplain plus 2 feet. So keep that in mind. The way this is working is going to be either an acquisition or a mitigation to elevation. All right, so the acquisition is basically a buyout. And supposedly the funds for the buyout, 75% is coming from Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha and 25% coming from the state. Now what they'll do is they will come in and buy out the land based on the new baseline flood zone baseline. Come in, buy your land, basically condemn it. You don't have a choice. Eminent domain. And go from there. Now, what is the baseline flooding? Let's explain what baseline flooding is. So they come in and determine where the new flood took place. It's pretty easy up till today, before they had rain. You could go through and you could see where the mud line was in the trees and where the debris was stacked up on the outer edges. That was your new height for your flood zone but you got to add 2 more feet in elevation for that. That's what's going to be called the new flood baseline. That's what that is. What they're going to do is go in and determine if there's a 1% chance the flood zone can be flooded again. All right, so let's look at that. A 1% chance. Well, it's already happened. So there's your 1%. That's just common sense. They had a flood in 1916 that was very close to what they just had in September. This one beat it by a few feet here and several feet in other places. And so that 1% chance in 100 years is it's what it is. I mean, that's going to include that. So anything that flooded already that falls with this 1% has happened. That's just common sense. The creeks, a lot of them went from like 6 feet wide to 90 feet wide. Some of the rivers went from 40 feet wide to 450 feet wide. So you're talking about a huge area here of the new rechanneled. A lot of it got rechanneled rivers, streams, and creeks with new elevation on the floods. Now keep in mind that some of these places flooded 40 feet in deep, 40 feet deep. So in other words, the new flood baseline zone would be 40 feet plus the 2 feet for the elevation and mitigation. So that would be the new minimum standard for the flood baseline. 2 feet above what they're going to call it, above the new reestablished flood baseline zone. So think about this. They got all this land on both sides of the river, and it got 40 feet deep, plus 2 feet. Look how much land they're going to try to get. Think about it. This is an enormous Golf, Romeo, Alpha, Bravo. You get that? Golf, Romeo, Alpha, Bravo. That's what this is going to wind up being. Probably the biggest in history of anywhere. So the 2 feet will be the new baseline. So you can't build. If you're on the edge, you're going to have to raise your house 2 feet on the foundation to get it above the new baseline. The question is how this is going to affect people who just got the flooding, depending on how low they are to the baseline flood. Now, you can't get a mortgage without, the flood insurance. The question is going to be, can they get flood insurance if their house is down in that flood zone? Will they be able to get flood insurance if they choose to rebuild? Well, if they've got a mortgage, they're going to be forced to carry it. But the government may not sell it to them. So that's a question that's got to be asked. Why is this happening? Let's think about that. Why is this happening? It's all set up from back in 2015, and it's to be completed by 2030. And that's through Uniform November. Uniform November. And the Whiskey Echo Foxtrot people. Whiskey Echo Foxtrot people. It's called, you ready? Alpha Golf Echo November Delta Alpha. I'll do that again. Alpha Golf Echo November Delta Alpha 2030. Now I'm going to tell you where you can find this information. You can look it up for yourself. https // sustainabledevelopment.org/. dot, I'm going back to the phonetic alphabet here so we don't get flagged, Uniform November, dot, Oscar Romeo Golf, / framework, / send, I'm going back to the phonetic here, Alpha Indigo framework. So the current administration that's in power, that's on the other side of the Potomac, committed in 2020 to place 30% more land and water into conservation. They did this by use of executive order, and it was called the 30 by 30. All right? And this was done by executive order for, now get ready, Charlie, Lima, India, Mike, Alpha, Tango, Echo, change. I'll say that again. Charlie, Lima, India, Mike, Alpha, Tango, Echo, change. That's all it's about. So another question here is, how will this affect those that are just flooded, and how will it affect those that are on the line? That's questions that have yet to be answered and don't know anything about that. Another problem is Foxtrot Echo Mike wants people to fill out a grant information application via the internet. Then you got to wait for an email from a hazard mitigation crew member and complete the application on the email that you're sent back. Now, I got a question. Coming. Now, after you fill this thing out, you got to wait to be approved by a local government, town, or county to be included in the offer. Here comes my question. How is it possible to fill this out when these people still don't have power or internet? There's some brilliant people running that place, Foxtrot, Echo, Mike, Alpha, and the ones they answering to ain't much smarter, if at all. Now in Buncombe County, you can go to the mall from November the 12th through the November the 15th from 10 to 6 p.m., 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and apply for this stuff. That's Monday through Friday too, by the way. Can't do that on weekend. But here's my question again. How is this possible if you're still finding people daily that's cut off and on the wrong side of the creek or the river, or if their transportation was swept away in the flood, but their house was still sitting on top of the hill and they're okay? Now, another hang-up I see is that all these owners must sign documents when applying. So in other words, if man and wife own the property, both of them have to sign this when they apply. My next question is, what if one of them was swept away and the other one can't sign? They ain't been found. And the death certificate's going to take years to get a death certificate for this. But guess what? Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha will not approve an application unless both owners, or owners, might be 3 or 4 of them, sign. So if somebody's missing or dead, they won't approve it. There's no way to get a death certificate. So Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha also wants photos of your house, front, back, side, to be used for the appraisal. And they're going to compare it to other houses in your neighborhood through comps. Well, how are they going to do that if those houses are gone as well? The next question is when people lost their houses, they lost everything that was in them. And I seriously doubt if they got out by the skin of their teeth that they was worried about a cell phone and all them pictures will be gone too. So how are they going to do that? That's a good question too. See, I think this whole thing is set up just to basically fail these people in Western North Carolina. There's no way these people could find out anything, especially if they ain't got power or internet, unless they was personally visited by somebody from this hazard mitigation crew through Foxtrot Echo Mike Alpha. And keep in mind, folks, they're still finding people daily up there that hasn't received anything as far as aid or anything. Now, why is that? Think about it. These folks here are probably more prepared for a disaster because they're used to ice and falling trees taking the power lines down. Maybe, to be out of power or whatever for 2 weeks. These people garden. They raise cattle and goats and chickens and pigs. They can their stuff in the garden. They kill a cow. They freeze the meat. Same thing with a pig. They got fresh eggs every day. If they're trapped up in the mountains for a month, they can eat off of their sustaining supply of food that they've prepared for. These people are probably more prepared than anybody would be on the coast for a hurricane. Even though they don't expect a hurricane, they expect bad weather, and all these people up to the end of September, it normally gets pretty cold the 1st of October in the mountains, and they've already had ice and sleet and snow one time before, right after the hurricane. So you got to think about this. This is the biggest Golf Romeo Alpha Bravo of land probably in the history of the United States. I told you I'd let you know what was happening and what I had found out. This is what I found out. There's still a lot of questions to be answered, but this is it. They are going to basically kick these people out of the woods. And I tell you, from what I've talked to some of them, there's going to be a big fight. There's going to be a massive fight in the woods that's going to carry over into wherever it needs to go, I believe. These are folks you just don't mess with. Continue to pray for them, folks. It gets worse every day when you get to hearing this kind of stuff, and then we found out this is the plan. This is the plan. And it all falls back into these accords that were signed through Uniform November back in 2015 and executive orders that was issued in 2020 to put land and water in conservation. Now think about this too, folks. You got this big area now that's a flood zone that encompasses all the rivers and creeks all throughout the western North Carolina mountains. Now, your government has control over all water and tributaries and lakes in the mountains. They're going to own it. Well, how do you get control of people? You control their water and their food supply. Think about it, folks. What's the long-range goal of the elite? It's called control. Thank you for joining me this evening, folks. I just told you what I found out and told you what I think. Y'all have a blessed day.